Item 8D is discussion and possible action on the sheriff contract for 2020. Sheriff Department had appeared and answered questions from the town board at the July 25th meeting, so that's informational. I believe in your packet, and I may have passed it by here a bit, but we do have a communication on that, and it is from Josh, and our Sheriff's Department friends can help us. Is it Jost? I know it's double O. Is that close enough? All right, Josh Jost, who's the business manager for the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department. We've got, again, a copy of his communication back from July 9th, and we'll just indicate to you just within this past week, we received another communication from him advising us that I believe the Sheriff's Department is looking to order new vehicles in September, and the request of us is to make a decision by early September. I mean, Captain Moonen, if you want to come up, or others, I don't want to misrepresent any of this, so there might be questions to it, but that's why it's on the agenda. Did I correctly state the understanding of his communication?
Yes, sir. As part of the 5-year, we would need to purchase a fleet that would be dedicated towards the town of Waukesha, as we stated at the last meeting. With that being said, the 5-year would require a new vehicle because we stretched into a 6th year this year for the Tahoe. As Inspector Gum stated at the last presentation, we would need to have an idea of when we purchase our other fleet vehicles for next year, we need to have the town, if it is so, you're choosing for the 5-year, to include that Tahoe in the purchase with the other Sheriff's Department vehicles.
And the timetable, at least at this point in time, is to do that ordering in September sometime. Is that your understanding or not? That's what his communication said?
Correct, in reading his communication, that was the timeline he gave for his purchasing.
Okay. All right, so discussion and possible action on that item, or questions of Captain Moonen.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not comfortable with a 5-year, but I would be comfortable with the motion that we do accept the 1-year extension of the contract.
Okay, Supervisor Radke made a motion to accept a 1-year extension of the contract. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, second by Supervisor Durr. Discussion?
Mr. Chairman, a few years ago when we renewed and reviewed the sheriff's contract, we made the change from a 7-day-a-week operation to a 5-day-a-week basically operation, a 4-2-5-2. There was a lot of feedback from the residents that were questioning our judgment on that and saw the need and the concern that we continue to have a sheriff's presence in the town, knowing that the sheriff himself lives in our town. One of the deputies that's here tonight lives in the town, knowing just based on the report that came through that about 20% of the calls were fire related, and probably one of the first ones on site when there is such an emergency. I just am not comfortable in, at this time, not renewing any kind of a contract.
Okay.
I see no reason to just have a 1-year when we can have a 5-year, and it can be tweaked, changed anytime during that 5 years. And then we'll have a deputy, instead of spending an hour traveling between the sheriff's department and here and back again, we're going to lose an hour's worth of time in the town. And I just don't see any reason that the 5-year is still the best deal out there. So I'm not going to support a 1-year.
Okay. My preference on this too would be to have the 5-year contract, the new vehicle, have it housed, if you will, on town property. The qualification, I guess, that I would put to that is I would want to see I know it was verbalized, I would like to see the exact contract language. I think Attorney Macy spoke to that previously, I mean, to see what kind of an out clause, if there is or whatever. So I would not support the 1 year, I'd support the 5 year in concept. But before I would vote for final approval on that, I would like to have town attorney review that and see what provisions are in it or what could be negotiated for what I'll call an out clause.
Mr. Chairman, are you saying that we postpone a vote and wait another month? Or?
No, I am, for my part, I will not support the 1 year, okay, which is what's on the table now. Depending on how that comes out, if that passes, we're done with the 1 year. If it doesn't, again, I'm willing to consider the 5 year with an out clause, but we gotta get past the 1 year first. I will not support the 1 year contract. Further discussion? If there's no further discussion, then since you're ready to vote, I'm going to make sure that we're crystal clear on the motion. The motion is to accept a 1 year contract with the Sheriff's Department, and the continuation, that would be the, what's commonly referred to as the 5-2-4-2 service level. Is that right, Supervisor Radke?
Correct.
Okay. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the 1 year contract indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I have got, and correct me if I'm wrong, I've got Supervisor Radke and Supervisor Dorr voting aye on the 1 year contract, and Supervisor Stigler, German, and I voting no on the 1 year contract. Is that correct? And if it is, then that motion is defeated. Do you wish to take any other kind of action this evening?
I'd like to move that we accept the 5 year contract with the Sheriff's Department.
I'll second the motion.
All right, discussion? Would you accept a either formal amendment, or I'll ask it as a friendly amendment for the moment, if this were to pass, a condition on it that a copy of that contract be made available for Attorney Macy to review and comment on, and make specific comment on it with regard to provisions for an out clause? Would you, as the maker of the motion, accept that as an amendment? Or we can vote on that formally if you prefer.
No, I would accept that.
As a friendly amendment?
Yes.
And I believe you seconded the motion. Would you accept that as a friendly
I'll
amendment?
support it, yes.
Mr. Chairman, I don't understand the friendly amendment, because I can tell you what it says, but I don't know if that means you're gonna sign it or not sign it. I mean, all I'll do is give an objective
Yeah.
review as to what it says, but I don't know if that means that you're willing to sign it based on what I said or not what I said. I can't make the decision.
Okay.
They say there's a termination.
Sure.
I paraphrase that. I assume it means that if you get out before the 5 years, you have to pay for the car regardless. They represented that they think, if I'm paraphrasing that, you know, if you cancel at any time prior to the 5 years, you're still responsible to pay the full cost of their
Right.
car.
Let-
And if that's the only
Yeah.
proviso that you're willing to say, you know, I know what I'm looking for, and I can tell you what it says, but I can't tell you whether it's going to be satisfactory to the motion maker.
And that's an absolutely fair point. I think there was, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think there might have been some discussion that you suggested that we, and I certainly don't want to put words in your mouth, but not enter into contracts that are longer than 3 years in length without a basis to opt out. And I mean, correct me on that, I certainly don't want to put words into your mouth.
No, that's an absolute statement.
Okay.
There's no law that says you can't enter into longer than 3 years, but since the entire board can turn over in 2 years, I get people say, well, how come, you let them enter into a contract when they could all be gone? And I said, I warned them that, a future board may not be supportive of this decision, but they chose to make the long term. That's different. They said you can get out, and so if that's all you want to know is whether you can get out, but they said there's going to be conditions on if you leave.
Okay, let me ask this way, maybe, and I think that's an excellent point, but back to the maker of the motion, the second of the motion, would you accept, I guess, a friendly amendment to accept the 5-year contract in concept, ask for the document to be prepared, ask Attorney Macy to review it for what those obligations are, opt-out provisions, and put it, assuming we can get it in a timely manner, put it on the agenda for final consideration at the meeting on the 12th of September. Would that, and before it becomes, would that alleviate some of that concern that you have voiced?
Absolutely, then you're really making a knowledgeable decision.
It's
Because you'll know
in-
whether the termination provisions is acceptable to you.
Right, and not.
But that's really then not a motion to approve, that's a motion to table it and direct that we get the contract for 5 years, review it and bring it back. Because you can't have, I wouldn't know whether, if it's to approve subject to bringing back and reapproving, okay.
Okay, but I mean, can we, I don't know, we got hung up on this, can we make a motion to table with conditions? Is that appropriate in your judgment?
Yes. Motion to table with directions, yes.
Okay.
Can I just
No, I
ask
really
a
messed
question
you up.
here?
Go ahead.
Can we just direct this to Captain Moon and ask him what those conditions are?
Okay, ask
Is
him.
that possible, Captain?
I can only speak to what Inspector Gunn would have stated at the last meeting, and the message that he said is, we would, if there was a choice to opt out during the contract towards the end, we would work with the town as far as how to get out of the contract. What that specifically means, I'm sure Attorney Macy would like to see the specific part of that, but the Sheriff's Department is committed to working with the town as we've done for a long time, and we're not so rigid that we wouldn't work with the town if it was necessary for the town to dissolve the contract.
I've really made a mess out of this, haven't I?
Well, I would interpret that to mean that there really isn't an out clause, but we'll work with you.
There is, if you would refer back to the last contract that was with the town, the same language would be used if there's any modification that's necessary. The sheriff, I'm sure, would definitely be able to work and change that.
A motion to table is always in order, Mr. Chairman.
Let's just try this then, I guess, a little bit different way, and this is back to the maker and the seconder of the motion, and I think if not hearing this correctly, tell me, but the motion, if you're amenable to it, would be to table at this meeting tonight, and it would be with a directive to have the Sheriff's Department prepare and submit the contract for a 5-year contract, to be able to do that in sufficient time that Attorney Macy can review and comment on it and bring it back for consideration at the meeting on September 12th. Is that about, got it right? So now we're back to the maker of the motion with the seconder of the motion. We've twisted your arm 3 times.
I'm not sure if I'm on horseback or walking right now.
I understand. Can you live with that?
Yeah, I can live with that if we can get it done by that time. I mean, we keep tabling things and keep putting things, the agenda just keeps getting
Understand.
bigger and bigger every month. I kind of want to get some of this stuff cleaned up once,
Understood. Can you live with that?
I can live with that.
Okay, and I think we've got a motion. Does everybody understand what it is? And then you understand the spirit of the motion. We're looking hopefully to have that document in hand, I would think within the week. We want to give Attorney Macy sufficient time to review that. I believe we've actually got a 3-week window before our next meeting. Is that right, on the 12th of September? But I think part of that unsaid that we need to have that within the week, so he's got an opportunity to take a look at it.
Yes, Chairman.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I believe in the meeting of July 25th, the actual contract was there that had the wording as to how to get out of it. And if I'm not mistaken, there were 2 things. One was that you had to assume the cost of the car if it could not be reappointed somewhere. And secondly, if the deputy that was assigned could not be reassigned somewhere, you were responsible for those wages. It was pretty clear in the presentation from the 25th. If you want to table it, that's fine, but it was in there and has been in the past contracts.
Okay. Any other comments for the discussion?
So what is the status of the motion for the 5-year? And is this just a motion to table?
It's a motion table with directions,
Okay.
which I think.
So there was no action on the motion by Mr. Stinkler and the second by Supervisor German for the 5-year, is that correct?
We basically ask them if they would accept this. I mean, we do it one of two ways as a friendly amendment. Maybe it's cleaner to ask them to withdraw. Would you prefer that? And we'll start it
I just
out.
want to know what I'm voting on.
Okay, well, that's okay. What you're voting on, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a motion to table until the next regularly scheduled meeting of the town board on September 12th. And the directions with it are to the sheriff's department is to submit the proposed contract in sufficient time so that Attorney Macy has an opportunity to review and comment on it, so we can take a look at this for final consideration on September 12th. That's my understanding of the motion, and it is for the contract for the 5-year program. Does anybody disagree with the way I've stated the motion? Okay, and is there any further discussion? And I'll sense you're ready to all to vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, do I have that correct? It's 4 in favor and 1 opposed. Supervisor Radke? Okay, thank you. All right, moving on.